Hi, patients and visionaries. Today I'll be talking about LASIK, and the question is, to LASIK or not? Hi, my name is Jan van Zyl, and today will be talking about refractive surgery. And LASIK is one of the procedures which the ophthalmologist can actually do to change your prescription. Now, this is a common question that we get asked in the practice. Um, should I consider refractive surgery? And this is something that you need to ask yourself before you even start. And I will be giving you a feedback, a very easy to understand feedback of what we see in the practice. I'm sure you've gathered that I'm a pretty practical person, and just some tips to think about if you are considering doing refractive surgery. Now, what is actually happening? And this is something that we see very often in the practice with people that grow older, patients of ours, as I said, that's had LASIK done 10, 15, 20 years ago. They are suffering, quite a lot with dry eyes, but their mind doesn't know that. So we see patients that come in for a routine refraction, and when we start examining them, we see that their corneas are not looking healthy at all. Now, what is this LASIK procedure? Now, I'm going to try and explain this very simply to you. And again, something that you need to consider before you go for the operation, depending on your climate where you are living. So if you are living high above sea level, if you are living in extremely dry conditions, you need to be really very thoughtful in your decision process. So this is an eyeball, and if you look at the eyeball, you'll see that this is the color of the eye. Now, LASIK, and of course, LASIK deals with the cornea. Now, the cornea, I am representing it with this lens here that's transparent. So your cornea is actually on top of this part there. It's like a further curve. Somewhere along the line, my model's lost its cornea. So when they do LASIK, they literally cut on the edge there. And they then open this edge, and it's called the flap. So they open this there, and they laser underneath, and then they close this. Now, what happens is when they cut this cornea, they are also actually interfering with the nerves that sits in the cornea. Now, these nerve endings, these sensors, tell your mind, tells your eyes how dry the air is. It tells your brain how much to blink, the type of tears it needs to produce, how often you must blink. It gives it feedback about the environment. So the nerve endings sitting on the cornea sits there, and it actually monitors the quality of your air, the density, how much oxygen is in the air, and it does this all automatic, and it actually then creates a system, a biofeedback loop, a biofeedback system that the brain automatically adjusts the blinking pattern, the oils, how often you blink, without you even knowing about it. Now, one of the tests that we do in the practice to show our patients that by the time, and this is now I'm talking about LASIK patients, by the time they realize there's a problem, very often it's too late, because 2/3 of those sensors is now basically dead. It's not working properly, and it doesn't give enough feedback to the brain about what's happening outside. Now, one of the most simple tests we do is the following, and I recently had a couple in here, and not surprisingly, you will find that most of the LASIK patients is actually female. I would imagine at least 90% or 95% of the patients I see that's got LASIK complications as female. And I had somebody in the practice, a lady and a husband. And one of the things we tell them and we show them on how this problem is affecting their vision and affecting their eye health is very simply the following. Now, I told the husband and the wife to do this simultaneously. And you can try it at home as well. So take your fingers like this and open your eyelids like this so that you cannot blink. And then start counting 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, good heavens, 6, 7, there I want to go. So 9, 10 seconds, the normal person will feel that the brain knows something is going on. It's not blinking. You can see I'm blinking a lot now. So immediately when you stop blinking, the eye nerves tells the brain, listen, I'm not getting oxygen, I'm not getting nutrients on the cornea, I'm not happy. And it actually tells your mind to force your eyes to blink. And by the way, your eye muscles are pretty strong and one of the fastest, if not the fastest, muscle in the body. Now, the husband sat on my one chair, and after 9 or 10 seconds, he was going like, oh, good heavens, I can't. I actually had to stop my patient in my testing chair. After about 45 seconds, she was still holding her eyes wide open like this, and she was not feeling any discomfort. Now, what does this tell you? It tells you that the biofeedback loop simply is not working. The husband's brain knew within 9 or 10 seconds something was going on in front, whilst the wife's brain, that loop, that biofeedback loop, simply wasn't working effectively at all. And I told the wife that we have to do a dry eye treatment. She has to be very careful. We gave her some blinking exercises because she cannot feel quickly enough that there's a problem. She was extremely surprised, and the husband actually couldn't believe it. And this is what we see in the practice. We see these problems becoming larger and larger as our patients, as this first generation of patients now are getting into their 60s or 70s. Because very often you had it done, most people have it done before 40. So the problem only starts 10, 15 years later. Now, unfortunately, it's not just a dry eye problem. Unfortunately, this goes much deeper than a dry eye problem. Now, if you go and Google LASIK complications, it'll say dry eyes. No, it's not a dry eye problem. It's actually a corneal problem and a corneal disease, which we see in the practice because our patients actually don't know that there's a problem. Until they can't see at night, they get glare, they got circles around lights, and the cornea looks hazy. When we examine the cornea, it doesn't look like a transparent piece of glass any longer. It looks hazy. It's like when you start your vehicle in the morning and it mists up from the inside. This is how we see our patients' cornea. Right, so what happens after they've cut on this section here and opened it up and lasered it and put it back? What happens? Now, you would imagine that it heals. But let's think about this for a moment. Your cornea is like a piece of glass. If you cut the glass, how do you put it back together again without leaving a mark? Because obviously, you cannot see that. You don't want to see something like this. Now, the first thing you have to realize is that the moment they cut the cornea, it can't handle pressure any longer. It's like cutting the window of a submarine's glass. Do you think that submarine's going to handle pressure when it's down underneath the water? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, unfortunately, the flap sometimes takes very long to heal, if it heals at all, actually. It just goes back into the position, and healing is not really there because you have to have a type of scar tissue when it heals. It's well known that if you break a bone, for example, the chances of actually breaking that bone on the same spot is just about zero. Now, I'm going to quickly show you the difference between the cornea and any other structure in the body. So if you look at my hand, you will see that there's scar tissue. Now, scar tissue forms to make sure that the structures now is binded together stronger, like a bone, than previously. That is not the case with the cornea. It's the only structure in the body that's got this living piece of glass. Now, as I said, consider this. How do you cut glass and then put it back together strong like it was before without leaving a mark? Now, the first thing that you should think about is, why am I actually wanting to do refractive surgery, or in this instance, LASIK? Now, this is a very simple question. If you are considering refractive surgery, the operative word in this whole sentence I just mentioned is surgery. Now, any type of surgery carries an inherent risk. Would you actually consider going for surgery tomorrow for your ear, your arm, your leg, whatever, if it wasn't necessary? And that's the essence of this question. Would you consider taking that risk? Because like any surgery, there's always a risk in surgery. And if you go and Google, you will see that cataract surgery is one of the, if not the surgery that is done the most in the world, cataract surgery, to replace your cataracts with intraocular lenses. Now, as optometrists, we often see in the practice the cases from the ophthalmologists, the eye surgeons. And I can tell you that there's not a single year that goes past in our practice where I don't see cataract surgery that might have gone a little bit wrong. So there is a risk, firstly, that you need to consider when you are doing refractive surgery. Now, when I advise my patients about these things, I always tell my patients, you want to start with the treatment program that is the less risk, and you work your way from a lesser risk to a higher risk. Now, when it comes to your eyes, the lowest risk is actually getting spectacles. Now, if for one other practical reason you cannot wear spectacles, then we say, well, let's try contact lenses. And then sometimes we do contact lenses and spectacles. And with contact lenses, your risk is a little bit higher for eye complications because your contact lens is sitting on your eyeball. And if that doesn't work, then I would consider sending my patients maybe for an opinion from an ophthalmologist who would then consider doing refractive surgery. So there are certain patients that we would refer for refractive surgery depending on the type of work and their personal environment and their circumstances. But to be brutally honest, it does not happen often in our practice. Maybe because I'm an optometrist and I do not do surgery. And that is the next thing that I need to say. As optometrist, you can see I'm wearing glasses. And if you are considering doing surgery, why not ask your ophthalmologist, can he actually maybe give you some idea of who's had surgery from him? Alternatively, is there any ophthalmologist that has surgery done? Now, again, personally, I don't know locally or where we live near Cape Town of any ophthalmologist that has had surgery done, refractive surgery on himself or maybe his wife or loved ones. Now, again, that says a lot. It's like me trying to sell glasses and I don't know the risk of the product or the treatment that I'm actually trying to sell to you or advise you to do. Um, so yes, from that point of view, also I tell my patients, make sure that you do your own research about your eye doctor. Not all eye doctors are good and not all eye doctors are bad. And the same with optometrists. So make sure you firstly do your risk assessment. You want to now look at what is the result that you are aiming for after you've done surgery. Now, very often people are short-sighted, so they can't see far away when they are considering doing surgery. They can see close up. But after 45, being short-sighted, it's actually quite great simply because you don't need reading glasses. So there's another factor that you have to consider is that what do you want the surgeon to do with your eyes? What prescription or what target prescription or target refraction should he be aiming for after the operation? So imagine now you are short-sighted, you cannot see far away. Do you want to see crystal clear in the distance and be able to walk around with no glasses? And you might have heard that, once you've had the operation, you don't ever have to wear glasses again. Now, I can tell you that as optometrist, that is not true. Even those people that's had hawk eyes, as they grow older, they need to get some reading glasses. It's called presbyopia. And now, if you are between 20 and 45 and you're short-sighted, please do not tell your ophthalmologist to aim for perfect vision because, again, what we see in the practice is that there's a natural progression from normal vision to actually become slightly long-sighted as you grow older. So your target prescription or your target refraction should actually err on the side of 2 or 3 steps being short-sighted, at least 1 or 2 steps, because that'll give you a buffer as you grow older that you don't have to eventually wear glasses for distance, because that is something which you do not want to do, because the whole idea is you want to walk around without glasses for normal vision. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that as you grow older, the chances of you requiring reading glasses is just about 100%. Now, if you are short-sighted, beware. Really be very careful of actually making your prescription long-sighted when you grow older, because that is terrible. And we see numerous patients in our practice. I think there's hardly a month that goes past where we do not see patients that has had LASIK done 10, 20, 25 years ago when it first started arriving in the practice, where initially they were fine for distance, but now they need glasses for distance and for reading. And let me be blunt, those patients are not happy patients at all. This was not what they expected when they first had the operation done. So first thing first, do risk assessment. Then make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Try glasses, try contact lenses. Don't go and do refractive surgery straight away. Find out your surgeon, make sure you know who you're dealing with. Try and get information about what's going on with your eyes as well. So from my side as optometrist, I always tell my patients, be sure that you know what you're getting into.